Toys, action figures, we all know it. They cost way too much money today. But let's take a look at what they cost back then, back in the 70s and 80s, and compare that to how much they'll be worth today. Welcome back to the Junk Room, everybody. It's me, the Junkman, coming back at you. Got one for you today. We're going to go back. We're going to look at toys, from action figures to even bikes, video game systems. We're going to compare that price that they retail for back then in the 70s and 80s or whatever, and tell you what that amount of money is worth today, how much that would cost you in today's dollars. Now, before we get into that, let's look at the income. Let's say in 1970, the average income in the United States was $8,000 a year. $8,000 a year. Can you imagine that? In 1977, it was $13,000 a year. That was the average. And in 1980, $12,000 was the average right there. So it dropped in 1980. What people get in 1977, usually it goes up. In 1985, the average annual income for a family in the U.S. was, what was it, $27,000. And in 1990, it was $30,000. In the year 2000, it jumped up to $42,000. So it kind of gives you a frame of where people's mind was, how much money they were making around these time points, while we dig into this and see what the retail was then and compare that to today, because we're going to use an inflation calculator. Yeah, I went down to the bank.
According to the computation machines down at the bank, and they're good machines.
And you can tell me, hey, I bought that in 1985. That's not the retail price it was. This is just an average price. I used the Sears catalog mostly to get these prices, or sales ads. So sometimes these are sales prices, sometimes they're not. Some stores sold it, some sell different prices. But I did a video like this once before, and people were like, hey, that's not what I paid for my Star Wars figure. So let's just dig into this and let's just start. And let's start with the Batman pop bag. We're going to go all the way back to 1969. Remember, in 1970, the average household was only making $8,000 a year, and these things sold for $3.99. As you can tell from this list, a lot of things end with 99 cents. But today, how much is that money worth today? What would you be paying for it today? That $3.99 equals to $32.56. That's a lot of money to punch a Batman punch bag, I tell you. How much me want to punch my wallet. Okay, how about Castle Grayskull from 1983? A lot of us grew up in the 80s. We had He-Man. We asked for Castle Grayskull during Christmas. We got it. Some of us didn't get it, and it was retailed for $24.99. That's a lot of money even today. How much is that in today's money? $75.90. $75. Almost $76 for Castle Grayskull. Well, what about 1983's He-Man slippers? Yeah, He-Man slippers. Who would wear this crap? You could get Skeletor or He-Man. A cool kid would have bought both and wore one on each feet and had them fight each other at school. But mess that they didn't do that. But they would have paid $6.99 for it back in 1983. How much would you pay for those slippers today? And if they cost that back then, $20.42. $20 for some goddamn slippers. Oh, let's go to Nintendo. Let's look at Nintendo. Everybody loves Nintendo. You could get it with the gun. You could get it with the robot, or just the controllers. I just have the controllers. I didn't have the gun or the robot. But we're going to look at the one with the gun. This is without the robot, but it comes with a light gun. And let's see. 1985, $99.99. Right there, right. They price it right there so you can see under $100. That ain't under $100. You got to add tax and everything. How much would that be today? Remember, about $100 in 1985. $281.46. Whew, that's a lot of money to play Nintendo, but still, that's cheaper than the Xbox or a PlayStation today. I don't know. I think they run like maybe $700. What about Snake Mountain? Let's go back over to He-Man in 1984. Snake Mountain. And believe it or not, this thing was going for a lot more money than Castle Grayskull. Remember, Castle Grayskull was going for around $25. Snake Mountain, $42.99. Almost $43. So it was almost double to get this thing right here. I guess because it had the little thing that changed your voice. And I don't know. I would have thought these would have been closer to the same price. Maybe there was a big influx in 1985 between 1983 and things costing more. I'm not really sure, but let's see. What was it? $42.99 in today's dollars? $122.72. You will be walking into, if you were a parent in 1985 and they said they wanted Snake Mountain, you're going to be laying down $122. Whew, what about the Falcon? We all love the Millennium Falcon back in the day. It was a playset and a toy ship all in one. And in 1978, it retailed for $26.99. Whew. How much would that be today? Well, that'd be $122.66. So it's about the same price as a Snake Mountain. Now, of course, we're talking Hasbro. If Hasbro released it today, it'd be about $400. They're going to jack the price up. What about the snow speeder? I can remember about getting the snow speeder back in 1980. Got it for my birthday. I got some money for my birthday, and we went to Zayre's, and I picked it out. And I guess I got about $20, maybe $15. The retail price of the snow speeder was $12.49. $12.49. Well, that's not reasonable, right? Well, what's that today? That's like laying down $44.53. $44 for a snow speeder. Some wampus of smoking grass. What if you just bought 15 figures? 15 figures in 1980. You could have got them out of the Sears Wish book for $29.99. A little under $30. $29.99. Today, 15 figures, $106.92. That's crazy, man. That is crazy. Rancor. Remember the Rancor from 1983? It retailed for $14.99. Today's dollars, $45. $45.53. Man, inflation is a bitch. Okay, how about this? Shuttle. The Shuttle Tidarian. 1984. This shit was huge. $37.99. $37.99. And that date, $111. That one came out even. $111. Which, let's be honest, again, if Hasbro sold this, it'd be $200 easy. They weren't going to, but that's what it equals up to. Remember the little Professor calculator? We all had these in the 70s. A little calculator to teach you how to do math and everything. It was really cute. It was I always thought it was more like a stocking stuffer gift for Christmas. I don't think kids were asking for it. Parents just wanted them to have it because it's educational. And that was $12.99. You think that's something? That's nothing? That's $12, $13. Throw it together, throw it in a stocking or something. Well, that equals to $68.67. $68 for that. Education. Kids don't want educational crap. How about a bike? How about in 1970s and 80s, we all had to have our bike. This was a cool bike back in 1975. And can you believe it? The retail at that time was $63.99. $63.99. And what today would that bike be? $35.74. $354.74. $354.74. Whew! That's a lot of banana seats. Okay. How about this one? 1986 Huffy. I love this bike. I remember seeing this in the Wish book in the catalogs. I wanted it so bad. And I got it for Christmas. And it was less than a week. Maybe a week. Right around there. I locked it up at a church. I locked it up after school. We had a church by our school. I locked it up there because I had to go to the dentist. I was going to get it after the dentist. Came back. Somebody stole my bike. I wanted this bike, so I love this bike. I didn't even get a chance to enjoy it. They even stole the lock. At least left the lock so I could be like, okay, at least I see you picked it or broke it. But back then it was $99.99. You can see it wasn't a cheap bike. I probably didn't get much else for Christmas that time. And what's it retail for today? What was the price be? $278.41. Whew. I guess that's still cheaper than that bike from the 70s. How about a G.I. Joe, the Flag? Remember this big old battleship? Every kid wanted it. Every kid needed it. And every parent said, that's just way too much. 1985. Remember 1985? The average income was $27,000. That's probably before you take out taxes. The Flag sold for $109.99. $109.99. Today, $306.33. $300. Okay, let's go on to 6 G.I. Joe figures back in 1985. Would have cost you $19.99. You could have got 5 action figures for $19.99. Today, $56.27. What about the Atari 2600? 1977, this was the big item for Christmas. Man, I got to play some Adventure. I got to play some Freeway. I got to play me some Combat. Well, you could with an Atari 2600, but you parents, Or if you had a job back in 1977, you would have to lay down $149.97. $149. And today, that comes to $743.02. $743. That's more than a PlayStation or an Xbox. Isn't that crazy? The Atari in those dollars back then cost more than an Xbox and a PlayStation. Let's look at the Super Nintendo, released in 1991 for a retail price of $44.99. What? That can't be wrong. Sorry, that was wrong. $87.99. $87.99. Today, $196.32. That's at least that's lower than the other things you can get. That's for sure. Game Boy, released in 1989, with a retail price of $44.99. $44.99. $106.77. Let's go back to the 70s. 1974. Mego, Star Trek, the Enterprise playset. This was a cool playset. My brother had. I love playing with it. Retail price, $11.99. Thinking that's nothing, man. That's nothing. I could buy two of them. Well, that would be $71.08. $71. Well, let's go all the way to the very end of the 90s. 1999, Star Wars is back, and everybody wanted to buy the Phantom Menace action figures. Hasbro made so many of these, they made millions, and they made so many of them, they cluttered up the shelves because they just made way too much. But in 1999, you could buy a Phantom Menace action figure at your retail store for $5.99. Oh, I wish we could buy action figures for $5.99 today. Today, that $5.99 equals up to $10.95. And let's be honest, these figures today, Hasbro's charging almost $20 for 3.75s now, and they hadn't really gotten that much better. You think if they talk, they walk by themselves or something, you can understand why they're so much more. Yeah, they might look a little bit more like what we see in the movies, but you're not really getting much more for your money. Anyway, that's a look at what stuff was worth back in the day compared to how much it's worth today. So let me know what you think below. Is inflation a bitch? That it is.
Hey, Junkman channel popping though.
Thank you, sir, for that unsolicited testimony.